called Rachel Reeves' economic blueprint for a Labor government. Rachel Reeves, the Labor Party's shadow chancellor, has pledged a steadfast adherence to Labor's current tax commitments, emphasizing that there will be no surprises in the party's economic agenda. This pledge extends to the realm of taxation, with Labor ruling out any increases to income tax, national insurance, corporation tax, or wealth tax. In her inaugural campaign speech, Reeves unequivocally stated that all tax measures earmarked to fund Labor's commitments have been fully disclosed. There are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've said, she declared, effectively drawing a line under any speculation about hidden tax hikes. Labor's funding strategy has been outlined, including a windfall tax on energy companies, the extension of VAT to private school fees, taxation of private equity bonuses, and a tightening of the non-domicile tax regime. Reeves has also ruled out any immediate budget or fiscal statement should Labor emerge victorious in the election, emphasizing her commitment to receiving and analyzing forecasts from the Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, before making any such announcements. The OBR requires 10 weeks' notice to provide an independent forecast ahead of a budget. And I've been really clear that I would not deliver a fiscal event without an OBR forecast, she stated, implying that a Labor government would not present a budget before mid-September. Reeves and Labor leader Keir Starmer have previously ruled out increases in national insurance and income tax, although over the weekend, Starmer did not explicitly rule out a rise in VAT, which Reeves has now done by implication. However, during a Q&A session in Derby, Reeves hinted that there was no guarantee Labor would increase the personal allowance, a move that would effectively raise taxes for many as inflation pushes wages into higher tax bands. Unlike the Conservatives, I won't make unfunded commitments, because the truth about unfunded commitments is that no one has any confidence that you can deliver on them, she asserted. The Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, a respected economic think tank, has called for a more transparent discussion about tax and spending. IFS Director Paul Johnson recently remarked that both parties must reckon with the reality of the economic and fiscal context in which this election is taking place. He emphasized that the incoming government would face difficult choices and would need to decide between cutting spending, raising taxes further, or increasing annual borrowing. The parties might well be reluctant to tell us which of these they would opt for upon taking office. That doesn't mean that we should refrain from asking them, the IFS report stated. In her speech, which coincided with Labor receiving endorsements from 120 major business leaders in a letter published in The Times, Reeves positioned Labor as the natural home for businesses. I'm not one of those politicians who thinks the private sector is a dirty word or a necessary evil. I've worked in the private sector, and I know that economic growth comes from the success of businesses, large, medium, and small. There is no other way. I'm not talking about the old, trickle-down, free market dogmas of the past, but instead a new spirit of partnership between government and business. Reeves declared that the economy would be a central theme of Labor's election campaign, adding, "We will fight this election on the economy. Every day we will expose the damage the Conservatives have done, the further damage they threaten to do. And we will set out Labor's alternative." Among those endorsing Labor are Charles Harmon, a former vice chair at J.P. Morgan Cazenove, Andy Palmer, the former Aston Martin chief executive, and John Holland Kay, a former chief of Heathrow Airport. However, the Unite Union has called on Labor to distance itself from Holland Kay, citing his involvement in fire and rehire practices at Heathrow during the pandemic, a practice that Labor has pledged to ban. Some unions have expressed concerns that Labor's promise on workers' rights has been watered down to allow businesses to fire and rehire under certain circumstances. Unite General Secretary Sharon Graham stated, "Labor must immediately distance itself from John Holland Kay, who was responsible for one of, if not the most brutal example of fire and rehire during the COVID pandemic. Fiscal responsibility and corporate partnership. Labor's economic pillars. Rachel Reeves's economic agenda rests on two pillars: fiscal responsibility and fostering a cooperative relationship with the business community. By ruling out surprise tax increases and committing to evidence-based decision-making grounded in OBR forecasts, Reeves aims to instill confidence in labor's ability to manage the economy responsibly. On the other hand, Reeves' recognition of the private sector's role in economic growth signals a departure from the anti-business rhetoric that has sometimes characterized labor's approach. By embracing a spirit of partnership, Reeves seeks to create an environment where businesses can thrive and contribute to the nation's prosperity. Endorsements' apparent and accountable approach to public finance. The Institute for Fiscal Studies has emphasized the importance of transparency and accountability in fiscal decision-making. The IFS believes that both political parties should engage in a frank and open discussion about the choices that need to be made regarding taxes, spending, and borrowing. Reeves' commitment to OBR forecasts and her rejection of unfunded commitments align with the IFS's call for transparency. By adhering to these principles, Reeves aims to provide voters with a clear understanding of labor's economic plans and to ensure that the party's policies are grounded in sound financial analysis. In balancing priorities, the challenges of economic recovery. As the United Kingdom grapples with the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, the incoming government will face a complex array of economic challenges. These include rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and a widening wealth gap. Labor's economic agenda will need to strike a delicate balance between supporting economic recovery, addressing social inequality, and maintaining fiscal sustainability. Reeves' emphasis on responsible budgeting and targeted investment suggests that she understands the need to navigate these challenges carefully. Engaging with labor and business, a path to inclusive growth. Reeves' recognition of the importance of both labor and business in economic growth is a welcome departure from the adversarial approaches that have often characterized industrial relations in the United Kingdom. By fostering a constructive dialogue with unions and business leaders, Reeves aims to create a climate of understanding and cooperation. This approach,